Morning, everyone. Uh, Welcome to our Contractors Insurance Made Easy webinar. It's being hosted by CID Insurance Programs, and I am Anae Agostini. I'm CEO of CID Insurance Programs, and I want to introduce the whole team that's going to be participating today. And first is Teresa Cochran. She's our commercial and garage underwriter. And so she's going to chime in throughout our webinar, which will be about 30 minutes. And then our speaker today is going to be Pam, we'd like to call her Pam, still, our senior underwriter at Nationwide E&S Specialty, formerly known as Scottsdale Insurance, if I may say so.
Absolutely.
Last but not least, Jacob Cole, who's our marketing specialist, and he runs everything behind the scenes. He makes it all work for us. So he's an important person to introduce. If you're having any trouble, he'll be the one helping you fix it. So let's get started. So let's get the logistics out of the way. Everyone's going to be muted because there's too many people are not able to talk at once. So you'll be able to hear, but you won't be able to speak. But that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. So questions are really important to us, and we want you to pose them in our chat room, which you'll see on your screen. And you can do that throughout the whole webinar, and we'll be watching for those and answer them as we go. So feel free to chime in with a question at any time. There'll be a short survey after the webinar, and we really appreciate you participating in that because it helps us do a better job for you. So having said that, logistics out of the way, and let's look at what we're going to be learning from Pam today. We want to be able to identify the different types of contractors, and that's the first place to start. And then let's talk about, she's going to be talking about what important underwriting criteria is that you need to be paying attention to for these types of contractors. What coverages do contractors need? That's that's an ever-changing situation, and each carrier could be a little bit different on what they're willing to offer. And then, how are contractors rated? And what affects the premium? So, without a further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Pam to do a presentation.
Hi, everybody. The two types of contractors we are going to discuss today are the artisan contractors and general contractors. Next screen, please. Artisan contractors defined. Artisan contractors, they tend to specialize in one or two types of artisan trades, painting, drywall, plumbing, even carpentry. The majority of the work will be conducted by the owner and or their direct employees. Some minor work can be subcontracted to others, less than 40%. If they are subcontracting more than 40%, we prefer to see those under the general contractors guidelines. And they may be engaged in both new construction or remodeling work for both residential and commercial. Again, artisan contractors do both commercial and residential construction. They do new or remodeling services. The rating is based on payroll and subcontractors' costs. This is different than general contractors. So on the artisan contractor, again, it is based on their payroll and the payroll of their employees, as well as the subcontractors' costs that they have. We do write a lot of new ventures and risks with no prior coverage or a lapse in coverage, and there are state exceptions here and there. Every state has their own laws and rules regarding artisan contractors. Coverages that are available For GL, limits up to 1 million, 2 million. Umbrella coverage is available. It's rated, again, on payroll and uninsured subcontractors' costs. Blanket additional insureds are offered. Primary non-contributory wording is offered. Waiver of subrogation. Completed operations endorsement is available for commercial construction only. It's not generally offered on any residential exposures. And designated construction project, the general aggregate limit for artisans, can also be offered.
A quick question for you, Pam.
Sure.
When it comes to the uninsured subcontractor cost, can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. And actually for artisans, we also rate for insured subcontractors and uninsured subcontractors.
Okay, got it.
The uninsured subcontractors should actually be included in the payroll for the insured.
Okay, that makes sense. And then any insured subcontractor costs, whatever is paid to the subcontractor, needs to be included as well.
That would be rated separately.
Right. Okay. Got it. And okay. That's it. And is it uninsured is the key word there?
Yes, uninsured is the key word here, and that's also a little different than the general contractor. So again, on the artisan contractor, if you have uninsured subcontractors costs, include that with your payroll under the artisan program. And then insured subcontractors costs is rated for, but it's separately classified.
So you're basically treating the uninsured subcontractor like an employee, essentially. Absolutely. Okay, and those that are actually functioning as an independent company with their own insurance would be considered like the vendor.
Correct. And insured subcontractors, the main difference here is insured subcontractors have a much lower rate than the uninsured subcontractor.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. That's really good information to know.
You're so welcome. Some classifications may not require a C contractor's license. It's basically up to you to be able to look to see which license is required for each individual job that they are doing. If they're a plumber, I know in the state of California, licenses are required on a lot of contractors if they make over a certain amount of money. So that would be like a plumber that runs a regular plumbing business. He certainly would need a contractor's license. Classifications that provide services rather than perform construction work. These licensing requirements may vary by carrier and by state. And unlicensed examples would be janitorial, mow and blow, pool cleaning, maintenance. Those are perfect examples of where you probably will not have a license, and that would be fine.
How would our brokers know whether they need to be concerned about a licensed or unlicensed artisan contractor?
You can actually go on to certain websites for the state of California for contractors, and it will tell you specifically when a license is needed.
Okay, that's good information. So,
and
each state should have that same website.
Absolutely. Each state should have information for you to be able to research when a license is needed and when it's not. And what we do, other than janitorial and the ones that are listed here, we specifically ask for a contractor's license and we go out and look to see if they have one. Because there is a website, especially in California, where you can put in a contractor's name, their personal name, their company name, or a license number if you have it, and it tells you if the license is active and how long they've had that license.
Okay, interesting. That's good information.
Now for general contractors. A general contractor is a contractor who would have administrative or managerial responsibility for construction projects and exercise supervisory control of those operations. So most general contractors are just overseeing the projects. And they also do the hiring of the subcontractors. General contractors may directly handle some of the construction work handled indirectly through subcontractors, and they do residential and or commercial construction.
Interesting. Okay. And do you do paper contractors as well?
Yes, we do.
And what I mean by paper contractors, just so in case brokers don't know, is that someone who subs everything out 100%. They use subcontractors, so they're essentially only, overseeing the operation.
And we absolutely write those.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, let me move on.
For the criteria and the underwriting guidelines for general contractors, at least 40% of their operations must be subcontracted out. So a lot of times you'll see a general contractor who subs out most of their work, but they may have one or two employees that do specific things for them, that may do just the framing for their operations or may just do the plumbing. As long as 40% or as long as that payroll is less than 40%, then they're still considered a general contractor. They can do 12 or fewer new single-family residences per year or at any one project site. A duplex is considered 2 single-family residences. We don't
Go ahead.
We don't consider apartments as single-family residences, so those are not considered residential at all. Those are considered commercial.
Oh, perfect. That's what I was trying to get. And if they are doing commercial work or apartments, then there's no cap on the number of units they can build.
Absolutely. There's no cap at all for anything that they do commercial-wise. We just want to put a cap on the new residential that they're doing because we don't want to run into huge CD losses.
That makes sense. There's been a lot of those. That's pretty standard operation.
And in our industry, condominiums and townhouses are prohibited because those are considered new residential construction. Those are not considered commercial. Because they are individually owned, that makes them residential. Whereas an apartment complex, those units are not individually owned, so that's considered commercial.
Oh, that's great to put a perspective on that. Okay.
And the rates, this is where it's a little different for general contractors versus artisan contractors. The rating is based on gross sales and uninsured subcontractors' costs. So if you have a general contractor who has $200,000 in sales, you're going to rate it based on their sales, and whatever insured subcontractors' costs you have is automatically included. So that would not be rated separately. Now, if they have uninsured subcontractors' costs, those would be rated separately.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Okay, so the insured subcontractor cost is already included in the rating factor based on sales.
Yes, and because it's based on sales, you don't need to know what the payroll is.
Okay, all right. That makes sense, and it's good for our brokers to understand the difference between the two.
For coverages available for the general contractor, we have limits up to $1 million, $2 million. Umbrella coverage is available. Again, it's
How high
rated.
Will you go on the umbrella?
I think she goes up to $10 million. I think $5 million is within your authority, and then I think she'll go up to $10 million, if not more. I could be mistaken there. It could be as high as 25. I'm not sure.
We can definitely go up to $10 million. We just need to see some loss runs.
Okay. Again, it's rated based on sales instead of payroll and uninsured subcontractors' costs. And that's where you want to be careful as well. You need to make sure to ask if they use uninsured subs, because when an audit is done, that's when that's discovered, and a lot of times they'll get hit with the larger AP for the audit. If we knew up front, then that can be avoided. Blanket, go ahead.
That's a pain. I mean, that can be a real problem.
Yes, it can. Blanket additional sureds are automatically included under the program, as is primary non-contributory wording, waiver of subrogation, and the designated construction project is available, but for artisan contractors only. And that is also no charge. For contractors' equipment, theft coverage can be provided. We do want to make sure that there are controls in place. If they're leaving large pieces of equipment in an open field that is not fenced, then you might want to think twice about the theft coverage. But most of the time, it's provided with no problem. $1 million total insured value available, $250,000 for any one item, a $50,000 limit available for miscellaneous tools and equipment, $250,000 limit per item of equipment that is rented or borrowed. And please know that anything over those, it's just a submit for approval. It doesn't mean we won't write higher limits. It just means we need to underwrite it a little closely. And then inland marine installation coverage, $500,000 at any one job site, $125,000 at any location other than a job site. Job sites must be fenced, lighted, and or have a security guard protected. And that's especially if you want theft coverage.
And so the difference between contractors' equipment and inland marine installation coverage, what can you just share that? Because, I don't know that all of our brokers listening would know the difference.
Installation coverage is for materials that are left at the job site that are going to be installed in that location. That's the difference between contractors' equipment, which is the equipment the contractors use in order to do the job. But installation coverage is for, let's say, lumber, roofing materials, that sort of thing that are kept at the job site that will eventually become a part of the building.
Okay, that's helpful. So contractors' equipment is also an inland marine coverage. So wherever the contractor goes with the equipment is intended to be covered.
Absolutely. It is movable. It can go wherever the contractor himself goes, whatever job site he works on. He can take his equipment from job site to job site, and there is coverage.
Perfect.
Important things to remember. Most contractors' policies are auditable, which is what I was saying before. That's why it's very important to find out if the subcontractors they use are insured or not insured. And it's okay for them to be uninsured. We just need to make sure that we rate for it accordingly, because we don't want any surprises come audit time and they have a large AP because they didn't report their uninsured subcontractors.
Right. And this is an area, auditable policies are always a problem, can be a problem, where people are, brokers can go in at lower payroll or lower sales and steal away, a policy based on premium, lower premium, but in the end, the audit is what gets them.
Absolutely. It needs to be honest and upfront in the beginning. Saves so much time and trouble for everybody, and especially for the insured. Just because you can get it cheaper at another company without disclosing the full exposures isn't going to help the insured in the long run. When an audit happens, then if there is uninsured subcontractors that were not reported, that's when it will be discovered.
Right. And then it doesn't go away after that. If the insured elects not to do anything about the audit, then ultimately that goes to collections, correct, Pam? Absolutely. Okay.
It will go to collections every time, and even if they cancel their policy, we've seen small contractors even close their doors it will still go to collections and it will still go against their credit.
Got it. Yeah, and that's nobody wants that. So I
No.
think that's an important thing to point out.
Well, and especially because it could have been avoided had we gotten the correct information up front.
Right.
And again, it's not that we won't write the exposure, we just need to classify it correctly because there are significantly different rates that apply to insured subcontractors and uninsured subcontractors.
Correct.
Contractors' work that is not insurable is the work itself. If it's poor workmanship, that's not considered an insurable exposure. Where insurance isn't meant to fix somebody's poor workmanship. If they do cause damage or something like that and it was an accident, then of course that's what their general liability coverage is for. But we won't cover for a contractor who has to go in and fix errors that he made himself. I hope that makes sense.
And it makes perfect sense, and that's something I really think is important for the brokers to always talk to the contractors, their insureds about, because that's who is not going to understand it. And at the time, they're going to think that they should be covered for that type of loss. I've seen it many times in the past. So, and you never know when it's going to be your turn to have that happen to you. So
that's absolutely true. Yes. And the things that the insureds need to understand is insurance is not to cover if they're cutting corners and they're not following the rules and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Insurance wasn't meant to cover those mistakes. Insurance was meant to cover if the insured accidentally hits a water pipe while he's installing a sink and causes a flooding. That's the sort of thing that insurance is meant to cover.
Oh, that's a good example. Okay. All right. That's good information. So
before we hit the slide, I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention.
Sure.
As an underwriter, I receive a lot of submissions. The broker saying, yeah, they have a B license, they're a general contractor, but the owner is the only worker. So again, I just want to highlight 40% in sub costs must be present in order for them to be considered a general contractor, even though they have a B license, which is a general contractor's license. They need to have that 40% in sub costs in order to be considered a GC. So for those of you that have that one-man shop that is a general contractor, he's going to be considered an artisan contractor, and I need to know all the different trades that he's going to be performing so that I can help get this rated and over to you as quickly as possible.
And that's a very good point as well. If you have a one-man shop, a lot of times they do a lot of different things. They'll do plumbing, they'll do electrical, they'll do framing, that sort of thing. We need to know all the different exposures and have them listed on the policy, even on an if-any basis where there's no premium. That way, should a loss occur, we can say, oh yeah, we knew he was doing that, and we meant to cover that exposure. So it's okay for them to do more than one thing. We just need to make sure that we put it on the policy correctly.
Good point. Thank you, Teresa. That's really good information. It looks like we have to clarify, it looks like a question. Please clarify products and completed ops not available for residential work. But last slide said bodily injury PD is covered.
There's a difference between bodily injury and PD and completed products. If for bodily injury and PD, let's say again the insured hit a water pipe, flooded the home, the insured was walking through, or the homeowner was walking through, slipped and fell, that would be a bodily injury exposure, and that is something that would be covered.
The completed ops, I believe the completed ops they're referring to regarding the residential work is actually an AI endorsement. So we're not offering the completed operations endorsement for an additional insured on residential work.
And that is very true. We do get the request quite often, but it's not something that should be offered on residential exposures. We will offer it on commercial all day long, but for a true residential exposure, completed operations, AI endorsement is not an option.
Do we have markets that will offer it other than Scottsdale, Teresa?
Mesa underwriters will look at that, yes.
Okay, got it. So this is something that by carrier, this could be there could be the coverage could vary by carrier.
We may be able to get that AI endorsement, yes, with Mesa. And also to clarify, completed operations on the general liability is included for residential and commercial work. We're just, the completed ops is strictly an AI endorsement.
Right. And is it the completed ops? Is there a misunderstanding typically out there at what the completed ops really is intended to cover versus, you know, the standard GL, bodily injury, property damage?
There typically is a misunderstanding out there, and it's really kind of tough to explain.
Got it.
For completed operations, like Teresa had mentioned, completed operations is covered on the policy. It's whether we want to name somebody else as an additional insured for that coverage where the issue comes in. On commercial exposures, it is something, you know, again, that we will offer. On residential exposures, it gets very tricky because that's where a lot of your construction defect issues come in.
It's usually the developer. Is that right now?
Correct. And we don't want to be naming completed operation or naming additional insureds for that completed operations exposure on our policies, because then we end up having to at least defend them for every project that they do, not just the projects they do for us.
Right, right, and I totally respect that. You know, I think that's the safest way to go. It's probably the best business to be writing if you're an insurance broker out there looking for contractors to insure. But that's not to say that other carriers might they might have an appetite for more of the condominium townhouse business that's out there. But I personally, I think it's a tough road to go trying to insure, and it's very competitive, trying to insure those bigger developers who are doing these big condominium projects. And it's very hard to comply with what the developer is going to require. So by far, if I were, you know, recommending where to go looking for your contractor business, I would not start there. I would start with your smaller artisans or smaller general contractors.
Right. And that's also why we limit the residential exposures to 12 new homes.
Got it.
Because if a construction defect issue were to occur, at least we're only dealing with 12 claimants rather than a whole 60-unit housing development.
Excellent. Okay, that's good information. Anything else, Teresa, you wanted to add on this slide?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just mention that all the exposures with contractors are. Oh, we have another question. So before I get started here, does the completed operations apply when you relinquish care, custody, and control of the location?
It does apply because it's when the loss occurred. If the loss occurred during our policy term, even if that construction is finished, then it's going to apply to our policy.
Makes sense because it's an occurrence form policy. You have to go back to the policy where the
Correct.
loss occurred.
Correct.
Okay, let us know if you have any other questions. Please chime them in. I just wanted to mention that when you're looking at contractors, you know, my philosophy is that, you know, the insured and contractors in general always think that you sell them a contractor's liability policy, and that's going to cover everything. Obviously, it's not. We know for sure that it's not going to cover their work product, and a lot of times they don't understand that. But there's a lot of other coverages that they need that are, we're just yet beginning to really, pay attention to. Of course, if they've got employees, they're going to need employment practices liability. Many of them are in a business where, they may be tied to technology in some way, where, I believe that was the Target, the cyber loss, that where there was an HVAC company, and their whole technological connection to Target actually is what caused that huge breach. And so you really have to watch your contractors, and contractually that's probably going to be a requirement on big jobs, and definitely something to have a discussion with them about. Also, many of them are doing consulting kind of work, construction management type work, and if they're stepping into where they're providing a professional service rather than doing construction work, you've got to look at professional liability. You need to be talking to them about that. And then the last two, environmental and pollution liability, I think, especially, the environmental and pollution, they're both hypersensitive in the industry now. There's a lot of regulations and laws that are really making the vendor or the contractor liable for any damage that they would cause environmentally or pollution-wise. And so you have to be talking to your contractor about these coverages as well. For the most part, these are all going to be standalone policies, but definitely for your own E&O sake, you should be having that discussion and letting them know, putting an application on the table, putting a proposal if you could gather enough information on the table so that you've done your due diligence. So,
and keep in mind that pollution liability is excluded from GL policies.
Thank you. And so is environmental, so is professional liability, so is
Correct.
cyber, so is employment practices. All of them are excluded. So thank you, Pam,
well,
for reminding me.
Some of them we just don't mention, like the cyber liability. We don't have like a true cyber liability exclusion, but there is a true pollution liability exclusion on all of our GL policies.
Right. You just won't find the coverage.
Correct.
Yes, but pollution is a clear exclusion. Yes.
Correct.
And is on most general liability policies. So if you have any questions, please type them in. And I wanted to thank you for joining us. Please visit our website. We've got lots of tools. Our upcoming webinars are there. You could re-watch this webinar. We're going to send it out to you. It will be on our website as well. So if you want to take another peek at it to learn, just reiterate some of the things that we went over and hear it again. We'll also be sending out a survey. Really want your feedback because we use it to make sure we do a better job for you. And then Teresa's ready for you to start submitting applications. She underwrites a wide variety of commercial products, and contractors is one of her specialties. So I encourage you to contact her if you have any questions or if you've got a risk that you'd like to have her take a look at. Thank you again, and thank you, Pam and Teresa and Jacob, for a great job.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, Renee. And I do see one question just popped through here in regards to what coverage is afforded the homeowner who wants to be added as an AI on a contractor policy. With these general liability policies, AIs for like a homeowner, your client, is going to be included. So there's automatically a blanket AI included on the policy for the customers of the contractor.
So Teresa, how would you handle that? Would they be able to show them the language that includes them as part of the policy? Because you know how, that homeowner may be, they may, I just want to be added, period.
Sure. So I always recommend the broker send over a certificate of insurance along with a copy of the blanket AI endorsement. And if that homeowner wants to be named, individually named as an AI, then we'll go ahead and issue that. That's not a problem. We can offer a separate AI endorsement naming that individual homeowner as an AI. That's fine.
Perfect. Okay. Good answer. Okay. If we don't have any other questions, then I just thank you all for joining us and look forward to doing some business with you. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.